Have you ever dreamt of household and family systems that just flowed? If you have, this episode is for you. Welcome back to Dream Life Season. Today is Wednesday. We have 3 more days left in this month of Dream Life Season. I'm Kimberly Cox. I am your host, and today we are talking about family and home systems that flow and also how those work inside of our personal lives and inside of our business. So let's get started with your Fantastic 15. Welcome to your Fantastic 15. We are talking all about systems that flow when it comes to home and family. So I want you to think back to the last 2 or 3 weeks as we've been talking all about ways to help things flow, different ideas, deciding what areas we're going to work on. And I want you guys to tell me what is working. What are you excited about? Drop what you are grateful that is working below. All right. So I definitely see myself weaving things more in, right? So having people pitch in more, having times for certain things, maybe not direct times, but days of the week that certain things happen. That's also another big one. And just making sure that I don't stop. I can take a day off. I can even take a couple days off if I have to. But we're getting back on this train and we're riding it because that's what we're committed to. So those are some things that I have seen that are working. I want to know what's working in your guys' lives. And we're going to hop to our grounding video and then we will get on with some inspiration. Welcome back again. We are talking about inspiration. We're talking about flow, right? And so what I want to say is nothing works perfect because nothing is perfect, okay? But it can be good and it can flow and it can feel like it flows, okay? And so I think that part of the issue with flow is that our expectations are generally up here for most of us, and just taking them down a little bit can give us more maneuverable room where we're going to be above that line more times than we're going to be below it. And that doesn't mean that you just lower your standards to nothingness, right? But I think that this is a gradual shift, okay? We grow, families grow, we get used to things become habits, then we can double down on things. We can make things a little bit harder. We can, add a little bit to it or things like that. And we can raise that bar slowly to where once we hit a baseline where we're consistently above more than we're below, we can raise that bar a little bit. And that's growth, okay? That is growth. So if you are in a space where you are more above that line of your standards than you are below it, and you feel like you're in a good place where you could probably raise the bar a little bit, raise it. Raise it. As you're raising it, you're kind of asking people to grow, and they will. It may not be right away. It may not be the day you raise that bar, everybody's going to jump on and do exactly what you say. It'll take a while. But you raise it a little bit, they'll grow to it. You raise it a little bit more, they'll grow to it. Okay, so that is how we flow with things, though. We lower our expectations a little bit and then we start to play to that baseline. And as long as we're, like I said, above that baseline more than below it, then we can start to move up, and growth happens, and we're still in the flow and things still feel good. And sometimes that looks like mom has to do more, right? Sometimes that looks like bring your dishes into the kitchen and then I'll put them in there. And at least I don't have to run around to everybody's rooms and pick up dishes, right? They bring them in, then I can rinse them off, put them in the dishwasher. Then maybe it looks like once everybody gets really good with that, then maybe it's okay, we are going to rinse off our dishes when we bring them in. And maybe we start talking about putting them in the dishwasher. If you notice or you think about it, you can put them in the dishwasher too, and that'll help out. And then we raise that bar eventually to where that's what you do. When you're done with the dish, you bring it in, you rinse it off, you put it in the dishwasher. Boom, 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 done. And I think that doing that way does create the flow. It does create a thing. And at first, yeah, you might have to do a little bit more. But then once you start to get everybody on board and everybody gets caught up and everybody gets in the habit of things, it gets easier. and then you have less on your plate, and then you can find a different area. And it's more about finding area after area that you want to work on. And yeah, we can do more than one area at a time, but I wouldn't suggest doing more than 2 or 3 because it's going to start to get, a little confusing and things like that. But if you're doing a couple of them, you can do a couple of them, and then once you get to where you're like, okay, this is pretty good. Like, we can live with this, I can live with. Then you can move on to a different area. It's going to take some time. It's going to take some work. And a lot of us will get to a place where we're like, well, I just don't have the time or the patience. I don't want to do the work. Like, just let me do it on my own. And to that I say a couple of different things. One is if it is something that you do not mind doing, okay? If it is something that you absolutely do not mind doing, then I would say if it feels better to do it that way, go for it, at least for now, right? Eventually you can work on that after you get some of the more important ones done. But if you're doing that with everything, you're going to start to burn out. You're going to start to wear out. You're going to not have the energy to give to do all the things that you need to do. And nobody is going to benefit from that at all. So when everybody starts to pitch in, it definitely helps. And it might take some time and you might be frustrated. And I think one of the things that I do when I get in those spaces, when I am actually working through things, is this too shall pass, this too shall pass, this too shall pass. They will learn, they will figure it out, and then on the other side of this it will be better. I keep reminding myself that because sometimes we need to, right? Because we feel like, well, what if this never happens? What if they never understand? What if they never do it the way I want them to do it? And sometimes it is the difference between if you let them do it the way they want to do it, as long as it's still getting done the right, a way, like actually getting done. Like, yeah, you can put dirty dishes in the dishwasher and they cannot get clean, and you could just keep rewashing the same old dirty dishes forever and they don't get clean because they weren't cleaned off before you put them in. Or you can clean them off but not entirely, or if you're just going to wash the dishes right away, you could put them in like that. There's all different ways that we can run this, right? And if we find a way that works, that our family is on board with, then great. If it's not working, then we need to explain that to them. So things flow when it feels like everybody's pulling their own weight, when it feels like nobody is stuck doing stuff all the time that they don't want. We all have to do things we don't want. Nobody gets off the hook of, okay, I just don't ever do anything I don't want to do. I used to talk to people all the time that used to tell me things like, well, I only do what I want to do. And I'm like, I guarantee you do more than what you want to do. You do things that you maybe don't really want to do. Well, I want to do them because I care about the people, and I'm like, that's not the same thing, because you don't really want to do it. You just want the end result, which is not the same thing as wanting to do it. That's you using your skills, using your, adapting, and okay, if I don't want to do this, how do I make this where I want to do it? Right? And even times like that, it can be hard. As parents, we have days where we do not want to get up and feed our kids, not because we want them to starve, because we're tired. And the last thing we want to do is spend 25 minutes in the kitchen, especially if there's the chance that they're either not going to eat it, not going to like it. We waited too long and now they're not hungry anymore, right? And with little kids, that can feel that way a lot. It can feel very difficult where you're like, okay, I made this thing for you. I made macaroni and cheese and it took me like 10 minutes to make it. And you just had like 4 pieces of fruit in a roll and now you're not hungry anymore and you didn't even touch your mac and cheese. And I wouldn't have even technically had to do that, but right? We've all had those days. So sometimes you have to have those that you can go to. You have to have those places where you can be like, I'm doing this because I'm contributing. I'm doing this, and we can help our kids have those same tools. And we're going to talk about that later. But this is your inspiration for the day. Flow can happen. We just have to, like I said, some of it's dropping our expectations and then we raise them. We don't drop them and leave them there. But if we drop them a little bit so that we can be above more than below, then we can start to feel the flow as we move up and move up and move up. And we start to see the growth. We start to see that people are okay. Like, we're only asking a little bit. We're only asking this little bit. And now they're starting to do it. And now they're doing it regularly. And then we move it up a little bit more, right? Alrighty, let's get on with your fun or with Move Your Body. Welcome to the Move Your Body section. So we're going to start out with some neck rolls, big rolls. Make sure you're breathing while you're doing this. All right, another big roll. Now we're going to go the opposite way. Big rolls. That's 2. And we're going to do 3 and 4 and 5. All right, now we're gonna do shrug shoulders and drop them. Shrug your shoulders up and drop them. All right, shrug your shoulders up, relax. Shrug your shoulders up, relax again. All right, one more time. All right, now we're gonna stretch up. Wiggle those fingers, stretch up as high as you can, and down. And we're gonna do that again. Stretch, 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 stretch. And down, and stretch, 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 up, up, high, high, and down. All right, stretch up one more time and down. One last time. We're gonna stretch, 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 and down. All right, now we're gonna stretch up and we're gonna go to the right, and then to the center, and then to the left, and then back to the center. We're gonna repeat. And go to the right, and then the center, and then stretch to the left, and then back to the center, and then down to touch your toes. Hold it there, hold it there, hold it there. All right, roll it back up, shake it out, shake it out, shake it out. On to the next segment. All right, welcome back. This is our Fun with Food segment. So this is a kind of a controversial segment for me. And it's one that comes from a lot of soul searching as of recently. And that is to pick your battles, okay? That can look like a couple of different things, but food is one of those areas where I feel like there's a lot of this is right, that's right, you don't do this, you don't do that. There's a lot of jibber jabber, a lot of talk, a lot of opinions, and it can make you go insane if you try to please everybody. And so this is why I say this is the segment that we are entitling Pick Your Battles. Because if I am trying to make flow happen by making everybody happy all the time, it's never gonna come. Flow has to come from you pick what battles are important to you. You pick what matters to you. You do the things to make those things easier, and then we rinse and repeat. Okay? So this can look like a lot of different things when it comes to fun with food, right? This can look like letting a child who has texture issues have the same stuff for a while. And maybe we gradually introduce things, but we don't every single meal introduce something different and make mealtime feel scary. Because when mealtime feels like they have to perform, when mealtime feels like I have to constantly try different things, I have to be out of my comfort zone all the time, I'm not allowed to be comfortable to eat, it can drive them away from even wanting to eat. And then we have situations like that, right? It can also cause them to overeat their preferred foods because they can feel like they're going to be taken away at some point. I have this thing, I'm allowed to have this. I better eat all of it that I can because I don't know when I'm going to get to have it again, right? So there's all kinds of areas, all kinds of things. It can be stuff like that. It can be stuff like eating healthy. If you're choosing to eat healthy, but everybody else in your family is not feeling that same way, especially if you have little kids, like you can make them healthy food, but if you're like taking away a lot of the fats and a lot of the, carbs and different things like that, that's not healthy for kids either. So they still need a balanced diet in order to grow and to do the things they need to do, right? To develop. So if you are taking certain things out of your diet and you're trying to have everybody eat the same foods, that's going to be difficult. So that could look something like, my battle is I am eating healthy for myself. That means I will buy the foods for myself that I know I want to eat and I will cook them, and that will be entirely separate of everybody else's stuff. And sometimes we have to do that. Sometimes we just, I grew up in a family where everybody said like, oh, you should never cook more than one meal for your family. Like, kids should just be forced to eat whatever everybody else eats, and like, that's that. And for a long time, I was on that, like, I'm not going to make two meals. And I did for a while, like, allow my oldest at the time, who had a lot of texture issues, to have like a peanut butter sandwich. We also had times when I would take, and that is how like food bars in my life came to be, because I knew that like my one child did not prefer spaghetti noodles. I am not a big fan of spaghetti. I will eat it, but I don't prefer it. And my youngest and my husband, they both loved it. So I would cook noodles, and I would cook them like, by themselves. And then I would, get regular spaghetti sauce, and I'd make my regular spaghetti sauce with my, my hamburger and everything. Sometimes I would get chicken, like rotisserie chicken, to do it. Sometimes I just wouldn't do chicken at all. But I would get like a jar of Alfredo sauce along with my 2 to 3, jars or cans of spaghetti sauce. And then I could have Alfredo if I wanted it, or a lot of times if I didn't get Alfredo, I would just put butter and Parmesan cheese on my spaghetti, and I would eat it that way. I would give my oldest her spaghetti sauce on a piece of bread, a hamburger bun, something like that, like a sloppy Joe. And then my husband and my youngest would eat normal spaghetti. I didn't cook anything different, except sometimes, like I said, I would heat up like an extra jar of sauce. And then I could just pour into a container, like reusable container, throw it in the microwave, warm it up, and then I could take whatever was left over of that and put that back in the fridge and use it again another day. I started to play around with stuff, and it was like, this is not a battle that I am willing to fight, that I only make one meal, right? Because it just felt like it was a lot, and I was constantly left like, my oldest only had so many foods that she would eat, and a lot of it was not the same foods that everybody else wanted. And so at that time, we were really struggling, and I had to decide that I was going to do things a little differently. I had to pick my battles, and that was not a battle I was willing to fight. And so we would do things a little bit different. Then I started to notice that anytime I let them put like extra stuff on their food and pick their different toppings and things like that, they always ate better. If we were at, a family outing, and there was a bunch of different food there and whatever, and they got to pick different foods and whatever, they would eat that a lot better than if I just made them a plate of what I thought they would eat, right? Because they got to pick it. So that was another thing that helped in that area. I say all this because I think food is something that naturally, there's people who are like, oh, you can't eat anything but organic, wholesome, non-GMO, whatever's to be healthy. And if you have anything else, you are ruining your life. And then there are people who are like, understand all of that, but I can't do that. I can't afford that. I don't have the time to do that. Like, I don't have the energy to do that, whatever that case is, right? And so I think for a lot of people, we got to a place where there was such a big divide between what is considered to be the right thing to do. And so you just have to make up your own mind. You have to sit in yourself. You have to know that what you're doing is right for your family. And sometimes that means that, okay, yeah, I get it that there are sometimes some harmful chemicals and things, but there are harmful chemicals in the air that we breathe. Like, there are harmful chemicals everywhere. And I know that I'm going to have people jump on me, and they're going to be like, well, that's not the way to. Sometimes you have to do what you have to do. And if you're worried about every little tiny thing constantly, there's no freedom in that. There's no fun in that. There's no, like, you are micromanaging everything to a point you're going to have a heart attack so much sooner than if you were to just say, okay, these are things that are important to me for these reasons. And these are things that are important to other people for whatever reason they have. And it's okay that it's important to them, but it doesn't have to be important to me. I don't have to take that on. That doesn't have to be my battle. And when we pick and choose our battles, again, I say especially as neurodivergent people, because we've already fought so many battles. We are already, if you were late diagnosed, you've fought so many battles your entire life that you never should have had to, okay? You were never given the support that other people get. You get to take a break. You get to breathe. You get to take a step back and say, okay, what are the most important? What are my non negotiables? What are my things that are absolutely the most important? Those are my priorities. And we should have those with nutrition, right? You know, when my kids were super little, it was they're not getting, you know, when they were little, they got milk and, you know, formulas and things like that. But then when they got to be the age where they stopped suggesting that they drink milk because they don't need it as much, it was pretty much water. One of my non negotiables is I'm not going to have a bunch of juice and pop and soda and tea and all that sugary kind of stuff in the house. I'm just not going to have it because it's going to be what they're going to lean to. It's going to be what they want. They're not going to drink the other thing. They need this. This is a healthy choice for them and it's okay. And then, you know, we've evolved since then, right? Now, you know, I will allow them to have a soda or two a day, but they are also older. They are, you know, a lot of times the caffeine helps to regulate them so that they can focus on different things. So I have reasons why we do certain things. But again, those are my own decisions that I made knowing our situation and being okay with that. Like, I would rather you have a Mountain Dew than I would a Monster when you're 12. Sorry, that's just the way that things go, right? I would rather you have a little bit of sugar and some caffeine than I would for you to have all of the other additives and stuff and that super high doses of caffeine and different things like that that are unhealthy. So, that being said, what are your battles that you're picking, right? And maybe you're looking at me and you're like, well, you're just like crazy. And my battle that I'm picking is I'm only making one meal a day, one meal for dinner, and everybody's going to eat it or they can wait. And that's fine. That is fine. For us, it was a little different because every meal was like that. So it became a thing, right? But maybe you're like, they can wait. If they only eat breakfast and lunch for, you know, a few days in a row, they'll figure it out, right? Also, I went extended. I had a kid that my kid actually held out for 5 days, I think it was, without eating, just having water and milk. So when you get to those more extensive things like that, and we had doctors involved, she went to feeding therapy, like it was a whole ordeal. But that being said, that was a battle at the time that I was like, I'm not fighting that battle anymore. I'm done. I can't. So, what battles are you fighting? Or maybe you're like me and you're like, okay, I can't fight that battle anymore. Drop that in the comments and let us know. Let's move on to the first ring. Oh, welcome to the first ring. Today, we are talking about getting everyone involved. Okay, so there's a couple of different ways that you can do this when it comes to home, when it comes to, and now we talked about it a little bit in inspiration, but honestly, I would say that the biggest and best way, especially as your kids get older, to help them understand is to like use examples that they understand. So maybe they don't like cleaning their room. And maybe every time you tell them to clean their room, they are so frustrated and they don't know where to start. And, you know, you break things down for them. We scaffold a lot. So, like, okay, you know, pick up all the trash first and then bring it to me. And then I go in and check. And then, okay, well, there's more trash here. Pick that up, bring that to me. And then we move on to the next thing. Like maybe that's clothes. Get all the clothes that's all over the floor, put them in the basket, put them out by the washing machine. And we do those kinds of things, right? And that's just their room. Okay. So sometimes when I am trying to explain things to my kids, I will say something like, you know how you don't like it when I tell you to clean your room? Well, think about the entire house that way. What if I told you you have to clean the entire house? All of it. Top to bottom, everything. And usually I can't do that. Like, I'm just a kid. How am I supposed to do that? Like, I didn't even know what to do. And I've had this conversation more than once with them. And those were almost exact quotes of what they would say. And to which I would say, well, this is why if everybody has a job and everybody just does their job, then nobody's stuck doing all of it. So if you keep your stuff in your room, you can bring it out here, that's fine, but when you're done with it, you put it back. Or, later on when you think about it, you grab it and put it back. And I keep my stuff picked up, and everybody's stuff is picked up. Then there's only a few more steps, right? If everybody puts their dishes in the dishwasher, then all somebody has to do is run it and somebody unloads it and we're ready to go again. When it comes to, you know, as my kids get older, when it comes to cooking, right? My plan is to have different meals that different kids know how to prepare and do really well, and then schedule those throughout the week, right? Okay, you're going to take care of breakfast for these 2 days, or you're going to take care of lunch for these 2 days. And when you make it for yourself, you're going to make it, for your sibling as well. That way, it's less that we have to do. And while you're doing it, you're going to put your dishes in the dishwasher when you're done, right? So that then we don't have to do that either, and you're cleaning up after yourself. And it just helps when everybody does those little things like that, because at the end of the day, we're not cleaning up big messes, but we're like, okay, everybody pretty much cleaned up as they went. We're good. So those are some ways that you can do that kind of stuff. Now, in a perfect world, we would always do that. Sometimes you know something, but you don't always apply it. So now I'm going to give you the trick to help you apply it. And that is sometimes you need cues, whether that is a person in the house that kind of is on top of things. Sometimes that can be a kid who's like, I like everything in order, right? And so then they're the ones that are running around like, okay, this is out of order, that's out of order, we need to fix this, we need to do this. And I have known, this is not my personal experience, but I have known mothers who are like, oh my gosh, my kid just told me to clean my house, basically, because it's driving them insane. And it's like sometimes different people value things differently. And some people really value organization, really value everything being in the right place, really value that stuff, and it makes them feel safe and comfortable and, good. And some people are just like that, the word safe doesn't come to their mind when they think about that. They just think about the work. They just think about all that I have to stop doing this to do that, right? And so, because we're all different, if you have somebody in your house that will do that, be nice and take them up on it, right? Also, cues around your house, a poster somewhere that says something, make a funny meme out of it. Make something fun that you can hang up that reminds you to do something, right? Because if you're doing that and people are seeing it and they know what it means, and then they're able to like, okay, wait a minute. Yeah, that means I need to put the dishes in the dishwasher. And so then you put the dishes in the dishwasher, and it helps. Sometimes we need that visual cue, right? So, what are some ways that you can get your family involved? Are we going to have sit down and have a conversation? Are we going to gamify it, right? I'm going to give you guys, 2 minutes to go around and pick up all the garbage that you can find, and the first person that brings it back to me gets to pick what we're having for dinner tomorrow or something. Or are you going to do something like at 7 o'clock at night, every night, a timer is going to go off and everybody is just going to stop what they're doing for 5 minutes, gather up all of the stuff that's in rooms that it doesn't belong in, that's theirs, and put it back in their room, and maybe put it back where it goes even. That would be great. So that then you don't have a big mess to do later, right? You just take that 5 minutes, move the stuff, put it where it needs to go, and then everything's clean. And you're in such a better place, right? Those are all ideas, things that you can do. Let me know in the comments what your favorite is, what the thing is that you're going to try, and let's move on to the center ring. Welcome to the center ring. So as we talk about flow and getting the family involved and your household flowing and your family flowing, we need to talk about you, because you are the center. You are the example. You are who everybody is going to follow. And so if I am telling everybody, you need to do this and you need to do that and you need to do this, but then I'm not doing it myself, I mean, yeah, your kids are supposed to listen to you, granted, But if you're telling me to do stuff that you're not willing to do yourself, that leaves a lot open for arguments and debate. And we know our neurodivergent kids love to debate, don't they? The easiest way to do this is to start with yourself. To start with, okay, I'm going to clean up my own stuff. I'm going to make sure my dishes are in the dishwasher. I am going to clean up after myself when I cook. I am going to make sure that I put my clothes in the laundry basket and all of those things. Because then when I start telling everybody to, okay, you need to like clean up your stuff, well, why aren't you cleaning up your stuff? Well, I already did that. Or maybe I didn't, but I get up and I start doing it with them. And then it turns into less of a, you're telling me what to do, and more of a, we're all in this together doing this. And sometimes that's all it takes is that little bit of a, you're not inflicting what you don't want to do on me, but rather we're all doing something that we don't necessarily want to do together. And that can be enough sometimes, depending on the situation, to sway the kids to do it. They might still complain and they might still not like it and they might still be upset and whatever. That's fine. They'll get over it. They'll get happy again. But on the other hand, if you're sitting there and you're barking out orders and not doing it, and you're like, oh, I'll do it later. That's used to be my favorite saying. And I still say it sometimes. But I try to be very intentional on if I say I'll do it later, I do it later now. For a long time, it was just always, I'll do it later or in a minute or whatever. And that was my go to, meaning I don't want to do this now. I don't want to do this at all. And if I say in a minute, I will forget it, but that's my neurodivergence. So you can't blame me for that, right? Because, and then I like had to realize, no, like you still have to be responsible for those things. Just because you have trouble doesn't mean that you're completely off the hook and you never have to clean or do dishes or, do any of these things that are, things that we need to do to function in society. Is it harder for us? Yes. Do we need accommodations sometimes? Yes. Do we need help? Do we need rewards? Do we need outside assistance sometimes? Yes. To all of those things. But it's not like your apartment complex is just going to say, well, you have neurodivergence. I guess you just don't ever have to pay your bills anymore because we can't do anything about it, right? You don't pay your bills, you're going to get thrown out. Water's going to get shut off, lights are going to get shut off, you're going to lose, your internet and stuff. You have to still do these things. And I think a lot of times what frustrates people who don't either are neurodivergent themselves but don't have a diagnosis, or they're on that borderline where they're like, well, I don't feel like doing it. I don't like doing these things. I don't want to, pay bills. I don't want to do these things, but I do them because that's what people do. And then you have this group of people coming and saying, well, it's just impossible for me to do this. I just can't. And it's like, no, that's not an excuse. Okay, this is why things are harder for us. This is why it can be not a superpower to have something like autism or ADHD or whatever. It can feel very debilitating. It can feel like you are losing everything because you can't do simple things like that, right? Or so you say. But with the right supports, with the right help, and with the right attitude, a lot of times I think we get mad because we're just like, well, I don't want to do it. And like, it feels shameful that people have to tell us what to do. We feel guilty that we can't just do these things. And so we then kind of get defensive. And instead of allowing people to help, sometimes we put up that guard and push back and I'm just not going to do it. But real life still has to happen, right? And we are examples for our family. We're examples for our kids. We're examples, if you don't have kids, we're examples for our nieces and nephews. If they see that aunt or uncle so-and-so is just doing whatever and nothing's happening and whatever, that can be confusing. And that's not saying that everything is on you in that way, but these are thoughts that we can think to ourselves as to why it's important to dig deep, why it's important to be more responsible, why it's important to do things on a different level, right? It's not just about us. It's not just about our family. It's, about so much more than that. And when we can dig deep, and yes, sometimes it's exhausting, and sometimes you have to give yourself grace, and sometimes you have to come up with different ways. Sometimes, I was doing a thing, and I'm going to do a like video or a live or something. I haven't figured out exactly what it's going to look like, but it's going to be on like what years of untreated neurodivergence looks like and how it can hurt, families, how it can hurt people. I went through from the time I was 18 until I was 30, actually, probably 31. I went through 15 jobs. Okay, now, before you get super alarmed with that, there were two companies that I worked for more than once. One that I worked at the same location twice, and the other one I worked at 3 different locations at different various times. And the one that I worked at twice, it was 5 years, over 2.5 and 2.5 years. But I say all that to say, like, there are real struggles that we have with holding down jobs, real struggles that we have with functioning in society. But you find ways to move past those, okay? After that whole ordeal, I went through 26 network marketing companies, hoping that this one was the one that was going to have the right structure and the right everything so that I could finally make something, right? And I have finally landed in a space. The Neurocircus is now 2 years old. We are officially 2 years old, and I am in a space where I've kept doing the same thing for enough, right? Not super extended, not, 20 years or whatever, but 2 years is enough. And it's never been the exact same thing. I've switched up some different things. I've done some different ideas and whatever, but we've still had the same basic plan. So it can be done, but you have to get to that space where you dig down deep and you decide, what are the things that you want? What are you after? What is life really supposed to look like? And you have to go after that. And yeah, it's going to be hard. And yeah, there's going to be days you don't feel like doing stuff, but you have to do it anyway. And that is where, when we make things easy, right? I could say, I'm going to clean my bathroom on Mondays. I'm going to clean my kitchen on Tuesdays. I'm going to clean, this thing on Thursdays, right? But if I have a day where I'm low energy and don't feel like doing it, and I have to do an entire room, how hard is that? Versus if I say, okay, I'm going to clean my sink, my bathroom sink on Mondays, and I'm going to record a couple videos, and and I have like these checklists that are like easier things that I can just check off, little things at a time, right? And yeah, granted, maybe you get tired and you have low energy and you have to, only do a little bit, but you're not totally behind, okay? It's not like I am behind. It's not like if I were to say I'm going to batch an entire week's worth of content on one day and clean the bathroom on that same day. And then the next day I get up and, I didn't do that before. And now I have more things on my plate to do today. Plus, I have all of yesterday's stuff. If I have little things that I can check off my list, it makes it so much easier. We break stuff down into manageable chunks. And we have our non negotiables, and then we have our extras. Like, okay, if I have normal energy, this is what we're doing. And then we have our high energy stuff where, if, okay, today's an over and above the top day, and I feel like I can get a little extra done. This is some stuff that needs to be done throughout the week that I can do today while I have the energy, and then tomorrow and the next day and the next day. I don't have to do as much. I'm taking some of the stuff off my plate. And so if we can work that way through things, then it's no longer about, I feel like I have to do so much and all of this and whatever. It's, okay, what's the next thing to do? Okay, can I wipe down the mirror? Okay, done. Easy. Can I unload the dishwasher? All right, over there, unload it, right? And as we start to do more, we're also gaining dopamine from it, from crossing things off the list, from accomplishing something. And we get extra dopamine when we accomplish something when we didn't think we were going to do it, when we didn't feel like it, when we're having to kind of dig down deep. That actually gives us more dopamine, because it's like, not only did I do this thing, that I don't want to do, but I did this thing that I don't want to do when I didn't have the energy to do it. And maybe I'm gonna, maybe I'm gonna struggle tomorrow a little bit. So maybe I do have to figure out where some things are gonna go. But we keep moving and we keep doing things and we stay responsible. We own up to things. If I don't, if I tell my kids we're going to do this thing and then we don't do it, a lot of parents would just be like, well, that's life. Like, okay, we didn't do the thing. I will apologize to my kids. I will say, I am sorry that this thing did not work out today. We will find another day that it will work. And people tell me all the time, like, why are you apologizing to your kids? Like, that is so weird. Like, you're the mom. Don't apologize. And I'm like, you're the mom, you're supposed to apologize, or they're not going to know how to apologize. They're learning what to apologize for by watching you. And if you're not willing to apologize when you break your word, if you're not willing to apologize when life happens, and yes, I know that maybe it's not my fault that life happened, but I was still the one that was supposed to facilitate stuff and now it can't happen. So that still puts it in my ballpark. They were ready to go. They wanted to do the thing. It was my ballpark why we didn't do it. Alrighty. We are going to move on to the third ring now. Let's do this. We have officially made it to the last ring on this day, this episode. I have loved this episode. I actually batched Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. So I'm on my third one straight. I didn't take a break because I was like, I need to do this. And I really, really wanted to get tomorrow's episode done so that if nothing else, it can get up there. I can, have it like scheduled and I can get yesterday's and today's up and published today. But I'm excited for this one because there's just so much about flow that society does not really get it, I guess. I don't know if get it is the right way to explain it, but they have a very different idea of what flow looks like, I think. And a lot of times it requires things that just normal people just don't have, okay? We have nannies and housekeepers and drivers and like that society's like whole thing is like hire everything out, throw more money at problems and all that kind of stuff. And when you don't have that kind of money in the moment, and that's like, I believe that everybody should have that kind of money. I am 1,000% everybody can have that kind of money. I'll put it that way. That money is available to other people, to anybody, right? There's no cap. It is just how much value do you bring? How do you invest things? How do you spend your money? What kinds of things do you choose to do in your free time? We're in the business section right now. There are lots of people who would rather drink beer and hang out on the weekends, watch sports, and watch Netflix and things like that than they would to put time and effort into a business. And those people are like, they could have what other people have if they took the time that they spent on other things that they deem as important, and that's fine. You can deem that that's important. I get the need to relax. I get the need to get your mind off of things. But we don't bring in more by ignoring stuff either, right? We bring in more by focusing on what's working. So, that being said, you're here. You're a business person. Maybe you volunteer, maybe you do whatever, whatever it is that your passion project thing is, right? Your work area is. How do we keep the flow going and still do those things? Okay. So I have a couple of different ways of looking at this, and I want to come from this place of sometimes we just have to involve our family in things, okay? So if you're a content creator, that can be simple. That can be something like, well, I have to go to the zoo to do this segment or whatever for my thing. I'm going to take the kids with. We're going to make a day out of it. I'm going to do what I need to do, but we're also going to have some fun with it. And that helps to keep the flow going because you can kind of do both things at once. I can get some work done, but I can also get some family time in. And that's something where it feels like it's kind of hitting more than one area. So it feels more worth it, right? Maybe that's something like your kids One of my children likes to edit and has told me that they would edit my videos at some point. We're still working on that, but that is in the works as something that is going to be happening at some point. There's other things, right? So maybe you volunteer. When I was little, my mom used to volunteer at the school, and they used to have kind of like they do box tops for education now. They used to do that with Campbell's soup labels. And so my mom would always head up the Campbell's soup label drive. And I can remember like my mom sitting with me, and one year, if you know Rainbow Bright, you know Rainbow Bright, the little sprites, she used those as the markers that would like move down the line to show how much each class had collected. And so one of the things she had to do, it was like her job to, color these things, cut them out, do all the things. And so she let me color a bunch of them, right? And I'm sitting there and I'm coloring with her, and she's cutting them out and like getting them on poster boards so they're thicker, and then cutting that out. And I can remember like sitting there with her, and that was like an afternoon spent together. She was doing the thing that she felt like she needed to do for her volunteering. Like that was part of her thing, but she was also including me. And so it wasn't like she was pushing me away, or she was pushing time away with me, or time with me away so that she could do it at another time. She was like, no, I'm just going to include you in this. And then, it's not to say we didn't have time later, I don't remember whether we did or not. I was like 6, but there was that moment where, because of all of that stuff happening, like I remember knowing that she was working for the school, doing something for the school, and I got to help. So there are all kinds of ways that we can get involved and help and let our kids help us, right? What are some ideas that come to your mind? Do you bring your kids to work? So many people I have seen that are entrepreneurs that say like, I had the pack and play with me next to me in my office, or I was making phone calls and like rocking the bassinet back and forth with my foot. Like, all of these people who have these stories of like, I didn't like just stop because I had kids. I let them come with me. I let them experience this. And when we let them experience this, they start to really understand. It's not like when a parent leaves and goes to work and comes back home, and that's kind of like okay, my parent left, and they don't understand until they're much older, like really what a job is and what work is, and the fact that like you do a certain job and then what your job is, right? But when they see us and they actually watch things happening, and then all of a sudden we get to do this fun thing because of this other thing that happened, like they start to really be able to see. And I'm leaning into the business owner, the entrepreneur, the creator in here, because I feel like we have a responsibility to show our children what is possible. We have a responsibility to say, look, the world says that you have to go do this and do that and do that, and that is a path. And if you want to take that path, by all means, I want you to do it. But there is another path. You don't have to go just down this path. You can follow your dreams, whatever that is, right? Your dream could be to be a doctor. Your dream could be to be, a reporter, or, a firefighter, or, your dream could be to own a business, own a store, own a restaurant. Whatever that is, they are fully allowed to embrace that and go down that path and make that come true. And if it changes up eventually, which it a lot of times does, then we're there to guide them and say, okay, well, now you don't want to do this, you want to do that. Well, this is the path that, people take for that, right? But by them seeing us chasing our own dreams, that allows them to know that they can do that. But when we're constantly putting our own dreams on the back burner, when we're constantly, okay, this isn't going to do it, this isn't going to work, we need to stop this, we can't do that, whatever, then can't is what our kids hear us say. So that's going to be something that they're going to feel like they're allowed to say and is acceptable. And well, you said it, so why can't I? We don't say can't. We find ways, or if we really don't want to do it, we change roads. We, detour, go down a different road. but we don't give up. We don't say we can't, right? Alrighty, drop your takeaways. What are some things that you are like, what are some ways that you can involve your family in your passion project, your business, your volunteering, whatever? Drop those in the comments and let's wrap this thing up. We are finished with Wednesday. Let's go. So, we talked a lot about flow. We talked about how to get your kids involved in chores, in business. We talked about being very responsible ourselves and how we have an obligation um, to go first, right? To be the example and lead by example. Let me know what your takeaways were. Like, comment, share this if you got value out of it, and we will see you guys tomorrow.